Well, welcome to today's rant. And while we're waiting for people to get on, just want to tell you, I've got the best job in the world, by far. I didn't deserve it. Don't know how I got it, but I have been in heaven the last few days, been having a visitation. All I can say is sometimes it's really hard to come back down to earth and focus on things here, but that's part of our job. You know, the very first mention in Scripture that God had a house, I think, is a profound revelation of what his house is supposed to be, and we are his house now. We are his dwelling place, the church. But the first mention in Scripture, he had a house. That's when Jacob had a, experience, a dream, and he saw a ladder reaching into heaven. The angels of God, and that word angel is often translated messenger. The messengers of God were sending and descending on that ladder, ascending into heaven, then descending back to the earth. I think that is the most basic revelation of what God's house is supposed to be. It is a gateway to heaven, where we should be able to ascend into the heavenly realm and bring back to the earth evidence of heaven's reality. Well, it's going to take me a while to process all I've been getting. I'm trying to write it into my next book. It'll be out soon, but it is taking a while. Sometimes it takes a while to just put it into words. But I have been having a great time. I think I've been seeing some aspects of the coming kingdom and how we're going to get there. And I've been asking for that for many years, When the 40 days between when the Lord was resurrected, it's actually a little more than that, but when he was resurrected to when he ascended, he spent that time teaching his apostles about the kingdom, the coming kingdom. Of course, they thought it was supposed to come right then. They didn't get some aspects, but he certainly taught them a lot. And that's what I've been asking for the Lord to teach me about, and I think I've been getting some of that. But one of the things we need to do is take the concepts that we get of heaven and bring them to the earth, the concepts about what heaven is like, what the kingdom age is going to be like, and try to apply it in life today, in the earth today. That's how we become salt and light. We take what God has given us and we apply it to today. Now, in my last rant, I said that I was going to talk about some things that had created the teenage problems. We do have a major problem with opioids. Suicide was up 70% in our country over the last decade. And listen, in my studies of history, until about the early 20th century, we didn't have teenage problems. You don't see them mentioned in history. Kids didn't have the problems they're having today. And I think there was one major factor in the West that released the kind of problems that we're supposed to see today. Now, I think what we call our teenage years should be times of vision, of getting both a direction for our purpose for being here, our purpose in this life, and formulating a plan for accomplishing that purpose. Then going to school for things you'll actually use in life that are connected to your purpose. A lot of things throw us off from that now and throw kids off from that. And I think one reason for a lot of the depression we discussed last time was doing things that Scripture clearly says are wrong. And we know in our heart they're wrong. God put that conscience in our heart. He revealed in us. He said he put his law in our hearts. And when you violate those, I don't care who persuades you to do it or what kind of majority believes it's okay or anything. It's not okay. It never will be okay. And you'll be depressed when you violate those things. So the way psychiatrists have gone after rectifying that is to try to make people think that the things that really are wrong, that violates God's laws, his principles, his morals, are okay. They're not okay. They never will be. So, as the Lord told Cain, and the only psychological statement ever made in Scripture, when he asked him, "Why are you depressed?" He said, "Why is your countenance fallen?" which we call today depression. He said, "If you do right, will not your countenance be lifted up? If you do wrong, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it." We need to master the things that are attacking us that way. And listen, there's a reason why the Lord is going to rule from Mount Zion. You know, Mount Zion is a very special and historical place in Scripture. It's where the Jebusites mocked David. And they said, you know, even the cripples in this town can defend this place from you. They thought they had an impregnable fortress, and they mocked King David. Said, "You'll never take this city." Well, David not only took it, but he made it his stronghold and the seat of his government and authority. And I believe that is an encouragement from Scripture that the sin or the problems that we have that are mocking us the most, once we take them, once we conquer those things, which we do by the blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony, loving not our lives unto the death, once we conquer them, they become our stronghold, the place of our authority. So we need to look at those things that have been mocking us and holding us back. We need to look at them as opportunities. This is where we're going to have our biggest victory. The way C.S. Lewis had it. Remember that little demon that was riding the man's shoulder who wanted to enter the kingdom? And the angel there said, "You can't come in here with that thing." And the man didn't want to get rid of it. But when he finally did, and he crushed it, and he killed that thing that had been dogging him his whole life, which in this case was lust, when he finally killed it and threw it to the ground, it changed into a great white stallion, which the man got on and rode into the kingdom. The very thing that had been keeping him out, once he killed it, once he put it to death, took up the cross, put it to death, it became the very thing that he rode into the kingdom. And I think that's the way our greatest obstacles really can be turned into our greatest strengths. That's why Paul wrote that his strength is made perfect in weakness. Okay, so what was the one factor? Going back a little bit, what was the one factor that we have in the beginning of the 20th century, the early decades of the 20th century, that could have been the very thing that released the kind of depression and all that our youth are subject to, and becoming increasingly subject to? This is going to sound really strange to you. I think it was the imposition of the child labor laws. Now, let that settle in for a minute. Now, children were being abused. Something needed to be done about it. No question about that. There were terrible atrocities being done. It was torture what was being done to some children. The way they were basically slave labor almost. And something needed to be done about that. I'm not questioning that. But they went too far. And this is often the case of the way people who really have the best of intentions, but not much wisdom, tend to overreact and create even worse problems than they fixed. Now, those were terrible problems. The way children were being so abused in industry and things like that, no question that needed to be fixed. But they overshot the runway. They basically said children can't work at all. And until they become of a certain age, and that age the period where they were no longer allowed to work at all were the years when they most needed, because of the changes going on in their bodies and everything else, they most needed a focus. They most needed some responsibility and something to do. Their puberty years. Those are the years they could no longer work. And, up until then, apprenticeships and things like that were what normally took place, education and apprenticeships, or they worked on farms or whatever, but they had jobs, they had responsibilities that they could focus on. And to deny them that at those crucial years just opened a can of worms that I think we're still dealing with, and it's getting worse and worse. So what's the answer? You put restrictions on children being able to work. You limit it to so many hours a day or a week or whatever. It's got to be under certain conditions. But you don't have to do away with it altogether. I remember, I got horses for my kids. You know why I got horses? Because I read a study that I believed was an accurate study, a good study, where a child, a teenager that had a horse to take care of was 75% less likely to get into all the troubles and traps the youth of today are falling into. It gave them that much more of a chance of not falling into those. Now, I just said, that's worth it. I'll buy any horse. I bought several horses. And, I don't know to what degree that worked, but it was just having the responsibility of taking care of a horse. Where my kids had to come home every day. They had to feed the horse, let them out, water them, take care of them, whatever. That little bit of responsibility could have that big of an impact. So that's something we need to look at. And also I want to mention a couple of other things, especially as we have these basically children becoming these school shooters. They're youth, they're teenagers, they're young people that are obviously really demented and messed up. But we need to look at the common denominators in their life that nobody seems to be talking about. Just one. No dad in their life. No father in their life. Check it out. Common denominator. Second one. This is something I can't believe has not been all over the news. Nobody's been bringing this out. But the use of mind-altering drugs to deal with all the other issues that youth are having today, I think because they're not allowed to have basic responsibility and jobs in their life that shouldn't dominate their life, shouldn't consume their whole life, but just having them required to do something every day that is a responsibility. Take care of this animal, take care of, these things, or learn something of a new job or skill or whatever, that is a very practical thing that I think could radically help our youth in what's going on with them. I'm just saying, check it out and give me your feedback. A lot of things, there's a lot going on today, but one of the things we want to look at my next rant, which I hope to do tomorrow, but sometimes I've been caught up in these experiences for several days, and I couldn't get back to earth that fast. I don't know how else to say it, and that may really confuse you or whatever, but I don't have time to explain it all right now. But it's a good thing, trust me. But I'm going to try to tomorrow. But we want to talk about the meltdown that's going on in California. That doesn't have to be happening. It's one of our great states. It's one of the greatest places. I used to go there a lot, almost monthly at times, and spend so much time. And it is one of the great states in the Union, and it's imploding. It's having a meltdown. It was recently named the worst place in the country to live. Think of that, California. It wasn't too long ago when everybody was California dreaming. That California dream has become a nightmare. And it's getting worse all the time. We need to examine things like that. Also, I just want to mention, because so many people are disturbed about what's going on in the Trump campaign, all the turnover. Trust me, that's a good thing. I am just so thankful to have a leader that has the boldness and courage to change things like that when they need it. Change people when they need changing, when they're not doing their job. And it sends a shockwave through the system. You better know your job. You better be competent at it. You better be getting it done if you're going to keep that job. And I'm just so thankful that our president is doing that. Now, you have all kinds of stuff. You see the stock market is reacting to this and that. Sometimes the stock market is brilliant, and sometimes you wonder if it couldn't be more stupid. I mean, just don't let the stock market, what's going on there, jerk you around. Overall, it's very encouraging what is happening in our stock market. It's an indication, it is basically a barometer of how much confidence people have in the economy of our country. And we have never had a run-up like we have over the last year. It's hit some turbulence now. Listen, it's always going to do that. And it doesn't read some things correctly, and some things that are really good for Wall Street are not good for Main Street. And if the things that affect Main Street are going to get fixed, Wall Street's going to get ticked off about it for a while because it's not necessarily the best thing for them. So I think what is going on in fixing our trade imbalances, everybody's saying they're afraid we're going to get into a trade war. Listen, we've been in a trade war for decades, and everybody else is throwing punches at us, and all we've been doing is taking them and not punching back. And just at the threat of the U.S. punching back on some of those who are punching us, they're worried about us putting 25% tariffs on them. They have 25% tariffs on our stuff now. Why can't we do the same thing they're doing? But anyway, I'm just saying, just the threat of America saying, okay, you want to do that? We're going to do the same thing to you, has sent shockwaves around the world, and that's a good thing. That is a good thing if you really want free trade around the world. I am just so thankful to have a leader in office who is standing up and doing the right thing here. Let Wall Street tremble for a while. Let them worry. They sometimes having them worry, that means we are doing the right thing. We're doing a good thing. And will effectively be the best thing for them too. I'm just saying. But don't let anything disturb you in all of this. That's not where we have our hope anyway. So next time we want to talk a little bit about California. Then we want to talk a little bit about things that are going on here, important things, this incredible omnibus bill. It's the most shocking, disappointing thing to me. In the Republicans, I can't believe, they're still funding Planned Parenthood. Don't you remember way back when the Republicans said, give us the House and we'll stop funding Planned Parenthood? So people mobilized, voted them into power in the House, took it away from Nancy Pelosi. How many years has that been now? Almost a decade. Well, they said, well, we need the Senate too. So we did that. Still funding Planned Parenthood. Didn't do anything. They had said both times about that too. They were going to defund Obamacare and all that. Didn't do a thing. And then they said, okay, we need the presidency too. We'll have all three. We'll get it all done. They still haven't done any of those things. And now they're about to pass another $1.3 trillion omnibus bill. that it couldn't be a more Democratic bill. I think if the Democrats held the House, the Senate, and the presidency right now, they couldn't have gotten a better spending bill than what our Republican president, Senate, and Congress are about to pass. Now, Trump's already bowing up a little bit. He's already saying, he's pushing back some on this bill. I hope he says, I'm not signing that. It is far beyond anything that we were promised, we were assured they would do. I can't believe the stuff that is in it, that is still in it. And that's the number one reason why I've been saying for years, we need a new party. Conservatives need a new party. And everybody says, well, that'll split the vote and then the liberals will win from now on. Listen, what good has it done us to have Republicans control the House or the Senate and the presidency? You say, well, they got the tax cuts passed. That's good. I think they've done a few other good things too. Not great things, but good things. That was good. I'm so thankful to hear the president saying he's already talking about another tax cut because more is needed. More regulations need to be cut. That's all good. Thankful for that. But there's a curse on our country from God. There is a curse on us, and it won't be lifted until we deal with this issue of the shedding of innocent blood. It's one of the main things that we see in Scripture brings a curse on any country. The shedding of innocent blood on any people, on any person. What could be more innocent than a person who hasn't even been allowed to live yet? And to shed their blood. And to do it in the torturous way that it is done. And every study, everything they've done, that baby is being tortured. They feel the torture. They feel the pain. You can measure the terror in that little baby that is being aborted. And then to have Planned Parenthood selling the baby parts, selling human. This is worse than some of the stuff the Nazis did. And then to have our Republican government, House, Senate, and President still funding Planned Parenthood. I don't get it. I don't think there's any excuse for it. And it's in this bill they want to pass to keep the government shut down. So what good is it doing us? I know this is big, important elections coming up. I know there are great congressmen who are just as frustrated and outraged at their own party that are in Congress, they are in the Senate, and they're just as appalled as we are. But look at the leadership. We've got to have a change of leadership in the House and the Senate and the presidency too, if this job can't get done. They've been promising us for almost 10 years. And yet they can't get it done. Still, your tax dollars are funding abortions because of our inept leadership in Congress and in the Senate. I'm just saying, it's my story and I'm sticking to it. Thank you for hearing me today.